Oops. What's going on, guys? Getting this stream set up here. Just gonna be doing some live tech talk today, and we're gonna be talking about Vega 64, Crossfire, Vega 56. Get this shared over to Twitter real quick, see if anybody else wants to chit chat with us. So you guys should be able to hit me up in the comments on the chat. It will show on the screen so people can know what you asked. And we'll get into it. How's everybody doing today? I should have shared this ahead of time, but I forgot to. I do apologize. Alright. Sorry about that, guys. Get this chat caught up here. This stream. Kind of early in the morning. I don't know if anybody's up yet or not. But we'll find out. What's going on, guys? See, we got 2 viewers here. You guys hit me up in the chat if you got any kind of questions, but this first time I'm gonna do this live tech talk, and we'll just see how it's going. So what's going on there, Slim 420? Doing alright this morning, man. A little upset because I was kind of researching the Vega 64 and come to find out that Crossfire does not work in it, and till the 56 is out and in people's hands, I don't know if it's going to work in it. Now, as you can see on this Google here, it does show that the Vega was in Crossfire at the Computex event. So they did have it working, but this is the one that bothers me. So woke up rendering, yeah, that sounds about like my life. So this is kind of scary here. This is from Gamers Nexus, definitely big YouTuber, and he was also at the event. And he says, during the press briefings leading to Vega's gaming variant launch, which looks similar to the FE card, blah 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 blah, one such conversation with a group of media led to the topic that lacking Crossfire marketing materials on the boxes of the Vegas, you know, whereas with the Polaris cards, the 480s and the 580s, they were like Crossfire, 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 you know, splattering it all over the place. So it says they were, you know, that they were, this time it seems none of the Crossfire claims were made. In fact, Crossfire wasn't even mentioned during any of the day-long media briefing. But till they sat down and did a roundtable later, and it says that Vega 64 and Vega 56 will support Crossfire, technically speaking. But this is the scary part. AMD noted that the industry is largely moving away from multi-GPU configurations. That right there, it, you know, makes me not want to invest in it, because it's just it doesn't seem like it's going to be worth it anymore, guys. I mean, when the people who are making them say that they are, you know, clearly state they are moving away from Crossfire, and they may solely depend on, you know, APIs that support multi-GPU without Crossfire profiles, but there's hardly any games that do that right now. Of course, DirectX 12 can take advantage of that, but until that comes, you know, it's still a long ways out, I think. So yeah, they got the Vega X2s in the works, and maybe they can do something with that to where it's not going to be, you know, where it's not going to require Crossfire profiles. Like I said, if they're using the multi-GPU, the MGPU, then, you know, you don't have to rely on Crossfire profiles and the drivers and such. It just takes advantage of two cards or multiple cards in your rig, whether they're, you know, AMD, NVIDIA, whatever. One of the more recent games that did that was Gears of War 4. They took advantage of the MGPU, and there's no Crossfire profile for it or anything like that. You just fire up the game, and if you got two cards in your rig, it's going to detect it and use them. So hopefully, you know, they'll move on to that, the developers for the games, you know, to where we see more of that. That was the point of Windows 10 and its architecture, and, you know, allowing us to use these multi GPU configurations, so that you know, we didn't have to have all these profiles, or it didn't matter whether it was SLI, and it doesn't even matter if you have an NVIDIA card and an AMD card in, you know, 2 different or 4 different PCI Express slots, that, you know, it can take advantage of all of them. And I'm gonna pull up another tab here, and one of the games that takes advantage of this is Ashes of the Singularity, for those of you who didn't know. We could probably just type in MGPU for Ashes of the Singularity. Now, what some people don't know is that you can use a NVIDIA and a AMD card at the same time in Ashes of the Singularity, and it's been benchmarked, and it actually worked pretty good. This is just, you know, proof that it can work in a game, and like I said, it actually works pretty good. So let's see, we got a Steam community discussion here, the tech benchmarks and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, it shows that they are moving forward in the industry with multi-GPU, but not so much SLI and Crossfire. So all we can really hope for is that the developers take more advantage of DX12. And Slim says, think of 2 Vega X2s with 16GB each of HBM2 equaling up to 32GB of VRAM in DirectX 12. Yeah, that's true, and a lot of people don't know that too. Is that when you're in MGPU, not Crossfire and not SLI, because when you're in Crossfire or SLI, you're limited to the VRAM of one of your cards. Okay, so whichever one has the lowest VRAM. So if you have an 8GB and 4GB card, you're only going to have 4GB of VRAM available. So if you are a Crossfire and a SLI, that's definitely important to make sure that you get matching. Otherwise, you're just going to get the VRAM of the lowest card. But back to what Slim 420 Reshades was saying, is that you know, and it doesn't even have to be with Vegas. It could be with any Crossfire cards, any SLI NVIDIA cards. Is that when DirectX 12 MGPU is used, then it does take advantage of the VRAM of both cards, and there's not very many games that do it, but it can be done. And like I said, again, this goes back to Windows 10 and DirectX 12. This was the point of it, was that you could just use any kind of cards that you wanted to, and it's going to take advantage of not only the performance but also the VRAM from both cards, or even integrated your integrated GPU, also with a dedicated GPU. So and that's got me curious. I'm gonna kind of type in a search for that. So let's do mGPU VRAM from both cards. Why can't Crossfire SLI use the sum of VRAM from all GPUs? Does 2 video cards double the VRAM? I mean, this is a question that people have always asked, or some people didn't know about. So, but what I'm wanting to find is, let's look up DirectX 12 VRAM stacking. Alright, so let's see. In this discussion, this is on Stack Exchange. Past DirectX OpenGL API's VRAM was mirrored across graphics cards with dual SLI. So see, with DirectX 12, the game engine or application has full control and responsibility over how data and work are distributed between the GPUs. It's up to the app developers to implement patterns like alternating frames between the GPUs or splitting the frame across GPUs if they wish to do so. And like I said, you've seen that in Gears 4 recently, where the developer decided to do that. So I want to know if there's any games out right now that actually take advantage of it, because when I did have Crossfire, either the 480s or the 580s, I did see some games report that I had 16 gigabyte of VRAM. Most games recognize it as 8. Let's see. DirectX 12 games that double VRAM. Maybe that'll pull up something. We're just kind of getting back to the same question. And see, I seen that which is kind of strange, because GTA 5 doesn't even have DX12, but it does. I remember that GTA 5 was one of the ones that does report your actual doubled up VRAM. However much you actually have installed into the PCI Express slots. But it's so hard to find any information on this stuff, and that's why it's hard to recommend anybody invest in it, because it's just so hard to find anything. And I guess it's hard for the developers to integrate it into their games also, so that kind of is it's harder work from them. Tomb Raider. So let's see. Yeah, you're right. Rise of the Tomb Raider. Okay, so let's look up Rise of the Tomb Raider DX12 VRAM. Well, no, DX12 mGPU VRAM. So yeah, here was the patch, but I want to see if it says anything about the async compute and more. Yeah, because see, this is Nixus, and they're the ones who work on that. let's see, you know, the patch added DX12 multi-GPU support, which, you know, is SLI, and Crossfire X, which they shouldn't even call it that because it's not Crossfire and it's not SLI. So, because there's no profile needed. Adds DirectX 12 multi-GPU support. You are less likely to be GPU bottlenecked. It can reach higher frame rates due to improved CPU utilization. Yeah, see, it doesn't really go into it. It's so hard to find anybody talking about this. Hitman, yeah, the DirectX 12 games, you know, especially the AMD ones. Deus Ex Mankind Divided, right? That's another one that took advantage of it. And like I said, Ashes of the Singularity, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Sniper Elite version 4 also took advantage of it. But yeah, these games will actually double up on however much VRAM you have in your PCI Express slots. And I guess if you have your integrated graphics enabled in your BIOS, then it'll take advantage of that also. So if you have AMD integrated graphics and you have that enabled, and then have your Radeon card, it should take advantage of both of them. And then also, I guess if you had the Intel, the HD graphics, it would take advantage of that also with your dedicated GPU. Of course, that'd probably be a bunch of finagling, and you know, just hard to get. So I guess on to the next topic is, you know, should you get Vega 64? And I guess for that you need to look up Vega 64 performance, and depending on what you have in your rig right now compared to, we can look up Eurogamer.net. This is the first one that's comes up. So you can see this with the Core i7 6700K overclocked, and the Vega 64. Blow this up a little bit if we can. Why did that go down? I don't know. Well, I guess we'll put that back down because it was crazy. But the Vega 64 was 86 frames per second, and a GTX 1080 is 84 frames per second, 1080 Ti 108, and a Vega 56 78. So here's more scores down here. This is on the Liquid, the 64, and then the Vega 56. We got Assassin's Creed Unity. This is at 4K. Slim says he's gonna pick up a 56 or 2. I mean, I'd be worried about picking up 2, because like we were just talking about, I mean, AMD specifically saying they're moving away from Crossfire, and there's just not a lot of developers right now investing in multi-GPU. I mean, we only got like maybe 5 or 6 games in the last year or 2 now that take advantage of it. So granted, they were, you know, big AAA titles, and that's the thing, is the smaller developers, you know, they're not going to waste their time with it. So 1080, which is what I have right now on Liquid, so that's also a great comparison to the Vega 64 Liquid. So the 1080 got 33 frames per second, and the Vega 64 got 27. Ashes of the Singularity, which is known to take great advantage of AMD hardware, was at 60.5, and the 1080 is at 60.2. Very similar. Same thing in COD IW, you got 79 and 75. Crisis 3, 35 on Vega, 40 on the 1080. and they're just really similar. It's across the board. It bounces back and forth. 1080 beats it in this one, Vega beats it in this one, and it's just really, really close performance. Oh yeah, for two rigs, yeah, definitely. And if you didn't have anything right now, if you don't have a GPU right now, or you have a GPU that is less than a 1080, a GTX 1080, or if you have a Radeon 480 or 580 or a 290X or something like that, I would definitely go for Vega. Not sure that I would go for 64. I think I'd probably wait around for the 56, because man, 56 isn't really much under in performance, and I don't know what the price point is for Vega 56. I guess that's another thing we can look up. Vega 56 price. Vega 56 and Vega 64 review. They talk about price in here. And when you type in a price search, and you don't get anything about the prices. Well, yeah, it's true. AMD does have a track record for their GPUs always get faster with driver improvements. That's definitely true. Okay, so in my case, let's see. The Vega 64 is what? Let's go to New A, because that's just where I shop. So, Vega 64 liquid. Alright, so we got the Power Color Radeon RX Vega 64, 8 gigabyte, on liquid, $700. And here's my current card right now, the EVGA GTX 1080 FTW hybrid. That's the one I got right there, 609. It's out of stock. I got mine for $570, shipped to the house. It was on sale. So to me, it just makes no sense at all. I have same performance as a Vega 64 for $570 to buy a card that costs $700 that's also on liquid. Right, yeah, absolutely. No point in paying more for FPS. You can't see with your naked eyes. Totally agree with that. Now, of course, you get into that whole discussion of whether, it really makes a difference or not. The 60 FPS, 75, 144, depending on the refresh rate of your monitor. I can see a huge difference between 60 and 120. Definitely more fluid, smoother, responsive. So I can definitely see people wanting to use 144. I have never used 144 myself, but I have used 120 at 1080p on my 4K TV. So the 120 on that was definitely a lot more smoother and responsive than my 75 hertz ultra wide monitor. But I can see a big difference between 60 and 75 on my LG ultra wide. So but as far as who can see that and who can't, I don't know. But back to this price point, it just makes no sense for me to, I could try to sell my 1080 and maybe hopefully get close to the 570 that I paid for it, to try to buy a $700 card that the stock is low on, you can't hardly find it, and the performance is only gonna match what I got now. Would it help my channel? Yeah, I'm sure it would, but I don't have a bunch of cards laying around, so I like to have my performance. So I guess I could sell 1080, do some out of pocket to get the Vega 64 on liquid, because There's once you go liquid, you're not going to go back. I'm not going to go back to an air-cooled card, you know, just because I love the liquid temperatures. So Vega 64 out of the question for me, and Vegas 56 is definitely going to be, you know, under the performance of the 1080. So for now, I'm with the 1080. Now, if they actually add in real Crossfire support, you know, when the 56s are, what else do we got coming out for Vegas? Is there anything else besides the 56? Because I can't remember. They don't even have the 56s listed. But yeah, if they add in real Crossfire support, you know, for the 56s, and the price difference isn't too much between what I could sell my 1080 for, then I would definitely Crossfire it, and I would go back to air just because I have the Core P3. I can slap them in, you know, the open air case and not have to worry about the heat issue too much. So Slim says in Vulcan, the Fury X was going head to head with the 1080. I want to see what the 64 can do in Vulcan. Oh, absolutely. You know, Vulcan's a great API, and I mean, again, you know, this is a, you know, you got a few games that use Vulcan, and it's just not wide enough supported, you know, across enough games to say, yeah, I'm gonna run out and buy, you know, AMD product, you know, because it kicks ass on Vulcan, you know. But and in DirectX 12, you know. And right now, you know, I want to go back to talking about Crossfire 2. Like right now, I mean, let's check out RX 580s on Newegg, because I haven't looked in a while. So for RX 580, Jesus, these are the ones I had. I had the Crossfire MSI RX 580s, 8 gigabytes, and it should, you know, the prices are just still ridiculous on them. They're just, until everything gets sorted out, there's just no point in doing it, guys. So as much as I would like to go back to Crossfire, I'm not going to go back to the older generation 480s or 580s. Hopefully it'll be added into Vegas, and if it is added into the Vegas, then I would consider doing it. But till then, I'm sticking with the 1080. It's unfortunate. Now what I may try to do is buy a Vega 56 when they come out, or you know, if they're, I don't even know if they're out yet, but I may try to buy one, you know, when stock gets normalized, and you know, see if we can't scrape up some money to get one of those together, because I'm just really curious to see how it works with the 1700X. I want an AMD card in this rig to see, you know, how it's going to perform with the 1700X and the DDR4, because when I had Crossfire, I was really bottlenecked with the FX 8370 and 16 gigabyte of DDR3 1600 megahertz. So really curious to see how it worked on the 1700X. I'm sure there's benchmarks out there on YouTube just for a single 480 or 580. I would definitely go with the 580 just because of the extra power features. But so if I can run across a 580 at a decent price, it's gonna have to be a good card. I'm not gonna go with a cheap one. I want one that, you know, overclocks good, and if I can find one for a good price, I'll probably snatch that up just to slap it in here and see what it does. So, well, guys, I'm gonna take a break, and Slim, I appreciate you checking in with me, bud, and I guess that'll be it for Tech Talk today. But I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll probably do another one of these next week or something, and see what else is hot on the press. So thanks for watching, guys.